We have a major update from NBA insider Steph Bondy of the New York Post. He's reported that according to sources, the New York Knicks are currently monitoring Joel Embiid, Donovan Mitchell, and Karl-Anthony Towns. But get this, Cat may be the most realistic target for the New York Knicks. He also helps explain why the New York Knicks are still holding on to Evan Fournier. We're going to break down all of this and so much more today. Let's get started. The New York Knicks are currently monitoring Joel Embiid, Donovan Mitchell, and Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, I know what you're thinking. We already know this, Troy. We've heard this all offseason. Well, yes, to a point, we have heard it all offseason. At least with Embiid. To Donovan Mitchell, we heard it somewhat, but not as loudly. With Cat, off and on, but then there was a point where the Cat rumors absolutely stopped. But now, thanks to Steph Bondy, they are on again, and now we have some sources that are indicating the Knicks are monitoring all of these three guys. According to Steph Bondy of the New York Post, he states that a source told him the New York Knicks are monitoring three targets in particular: Minnesota's Karl-Anthony Towns, Philadelphia's Joel Embiid, and Cleveland's Donovan Mitchell. But get this, of those three, the most feasible in-season deal would be for Towns. Now, he didn't write this in the article, but he did continue and add this to the article via Twitter, where he stated that you can add to the article that it's very unlikely that either Embiid or Mitchell will be traded during the season. This is a major update coming from Steph Bondy here of the New York Post. Yes, I said New York Post. He has changed positions in terms of where he writes, so shout out to him. But let's get back to this bombshell that he dropped. The Knicks, obviously, we knew were monitoring Joel Embiid and Donovan Mitchell. But the Cat thing, I think we all thought those rumors were dead, that he was not going to be moved, that his price tag was too high, and that obviously Minnesota wanted to see what they could do together this season. Now with these reports coming out, where the New York Knicks are currently monitoring potentially Karl-Anthony Towns, and the report stating that he is the most feasible of those three stars to potentially be traded in season, it has me a little worried, guys, because with the connections with Leon Rose, with Gerson Rosas obviously taking another huge step in his career with the New York Knicks, being promoted to VP of basketball operations, essentially the New York Knicks are being run by Leon Rose, William Wesley, and of course now Gerson Rosas. With all of those connections in play, especially with this report coming out, I absolutely believe the report that the New York Knicks are monitoring Cat, and absolutely that Cat could potentially be moved in season to another team. Who that team could be, I don't know. But obviously, with the New York Knicks, they are tied to a number of stars. They've been tied to Cat for a number of years, especially since Leon Rose took power in the New York Knicks. And now those things are not going to die down at all. Thanks to this report, we're probably going to see how the Timberwolves start. And if they start out slow, expect these rumors and reports to get louder and louder and louder. And if it gets really loud by the trade deadline, you never know what could happen. But definitely you have to argue that the New York Knicks will be in the mix to get Cat if he's available at the trade deadline, because there's too many connections there, and the Knicks just have so many assets at their disposal to make a trade happen. Whether you like it or not, the New York Knicks are always going to be in the mix and always going to be in the discussion for potential trades for any star. Whether the star fits or they don't, they're going to be in the mix for them. I didn't expect the Karl-Anthony Towns thing. I got to be real there. I obviously knew about Donovan Mitchell. I knew about Joel Embiid, and I was perfectly fine with that, and I kind of made my peace with those two. But Cat, I was never going to be on board with Cat. I thought we were away from that, and now, boom. Thanks to Steph Bondy, NBA insider, they are back on again. Cat to the Knicks rumors out there again. And for me, I just don't like it. I don't like the fit for Cat. If you trade for Cat, you're likely giving up a lot of assets for a player who's being treated like a superstar, who is nowhere close to being a superstar, who's getting paid like a superstar, who is nowhere close to a superstar. And in my humble opinion, even though he's one of the best three-point shooters at his position, which is very good, I don't think he moves the needle enough for the New York Knicks. And if anything, if you add Cat and you have to add another piece to whatever you have left with Cat and Brunson, then in my opinion, you're not doing right by the New York Knicks, because now you have less assets to make that move. And arguably, who are you going to get to play with those two? Who's the complementary star to play with those two? He's playing right now with Gobert and Anthony Edwards and himself right now. And he couldn't get it done. He was playing with D'Angelo Russell a couple of seasons ago, along with some of those players. Couldn't get it done. Cat used to be the centerpiece of a team, couldn't get it done. He's not the center right now of Minnesota. That's Anthony Edwards. He still can't get it done. They can't get it done with Cat as a number 1 or number 2. Do you think if he came to the New York Knicks to be the number 1, or you traded everything to get the number 2 that Cat probably is, and he was on the team, would he push this Knicks team to a championship contender? Because in my opinion, he wouldn't, and we gave up a significant amount of assets to get him, and now what do? We're stuck with this roster that we can't really push further, and they're likely going to be a playoff team if we're lucky, and if that, are they going to really contend in the Eastern Conference with Milwaukee and Boston there? In my opinion, no. And if you're doing that type of trade for a player like Cat, it just doesn't make sense to me. Now, that's my personal opinion. I know what Cat gives you. I know what he can bring. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but he's not the player you push everything on the table for, all the chips in the table for, and try to get. He is not that player. And in my opinion, he never will be. He's not Joel Embiid. He is not. And if you're talking about that level of a star, I would give up more assets for Joel than I ever would for Cat. That's just my opinion. Now, Donovan Mitchell, you can make the argument he's not on Joel Embiid's level. But you know what? I argue that Donovan Mitchell's price tag wouldn't be as high, because everybody knows he wants to come to New York, number 1. And number 2, he always is seen in New York. He wants to wear orange and blue. He's a Mets fan anyways. The connections are there. If the Cleveland Cavaliers tried to trade him and everybody knew he was going to the Knicks or he wanted to go to New York, what's his value like? It goes down a little bit. So whether the Knicks trade for him or another team trade for him, you got to wonder, is it a rental? Because if it is, do you want to give up significant assets for a rental? Because if he leaves in free agency to go to New York anyways, then what did he even make the trade for? That's what teams are going to have to consider. That's what they're considering now. That's why that new CBA is so important to understand, because teams that get closer to that second apron are going to have a real big issue, and teams don't want to be there. That's why sometimes you see players like John Collins. Sometimes people say, wow, he's such a great player, and was moved for barely anything by the Hawks, because they wanted to make sure they retained the players that they had, key player being Dejounte Murray, because that was one of the key players they needed to pay, and in order to pay him, you need to free up space. So that was another reason they made the move. Some teams are going to have to make this move as we move further. Whether or not that's going to be one of these players we're talking about right now remains to be seen. And again, it is key to note that Steph Bondy stated that Embiid or Mitchell are unlikely to be traded during the season. The only name out there is Cat during the season. That's why I'm fearful of it. But that's why I had to speak about this major report that came out. That's why I had to address it. And that's why I had to say what I had to say about Cat. Because really, throughout this entire report, the biggest thing I took from it, regardless of who they're monitoring, is that Cat is back on the table. They are monitoring Cat again. And honestly, Bondy saying that he is the most feasible of any of the players that are on that list scares me. Absolutely. So I had to talk about it and acknowledge it. But that's not the only thing that Bondy stated. He also dropped a little bit of a gem about Evan Fournier and why the Knicks are currently holding on to him. According to Steph Bondy, he states that the New York Knicks are currently holding on to Evan Fournier because of the value attached to his $19 million expiring contract. Until the February 8 trade deadline, team president Leon Rose can use the three-point specialist as a way to match salaries for a star player. So, there you have it. Question: why do the New York Knicks still have Evan Fournier? Answer, thanks to Steph Bondy, because they want to match salaries, potentially for a star player trade. Why is this important? Well, let's go back to that first point we were talking about. Cat, Embiid, and of course Donovan. Out of all three, most feasible is Cat being traded during the season. With all of this in mind, and obviously knowing that the New York Knicks with Evan Fournier really have only value for him this season, because next season they can waive him and he's not going to be with any team and he can go play for whatever team he wants to go play for. So knowing all of this stuff, it absolutely scares me even more. The Knicks are holding on to Evan Fournier because they want to help facilitate a star trade to help get a star on this team. And the most realistic, feasible star out there right now for the Knicks is Karl-Anthony Towns, according to NBA insider Steph Bondy. That's the scary part. Minnesota tanks, does badly, or doesn't showcase any type of ability headed into the season for the first 15, 20 games. That rumor, that announcement, this report is going to get louder and louder and louder. And my fear is going to get so loud that it actually happens. And if it happens, tune into this channel because I'm going to be on fire. On fire if they trade for Cat. If they give up significant assets to get Cat and obviously move on for Evan Fournier because I know that's what they want to do anyways. But if they give up significant assets for Cat, I am going to be heated. I am going to be hot. I am going to be uncontrollable. Best believe the New York Knicks better stay away from Cat. In my opinion, he does not move the needle enough for this New York Knicks team. But what about you guys? Let me know in the comments. What do you feel about this report about the New York Knicks monitoring Embiid, Donovan Mitchell, and Cat? And who do you think is the most realistic? Is it Cat? And if the Knicks trade for Cat, what do you feel about it? Are you okay with it? Or do you get as hot as me about it? Let me know in the comments below because honestly, guys, I would love to hear from you. But until next time, Knicks fans, don't forget to smash that like button, leave a comment below, and of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knicks fans. Peace.